Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you wouldn't mind taking your seats, I apologize for the delay again, but we're going to get started here. Let's start with some housekeeping issues. If you didn't get a name badge, there are name badges out there. If you registered, there should already be one printed up for you. They're in alphabetical order out there. There's also a sign-in sheet. If you registered, your name's already on the sign-in sheet, just initial at the end of the line next to your name. If you didn't register, there are blank name tags out there, and please just add your name to the end of the sign-in sheet. I'd really appreciate that. Restrooms are, as you go out here into the hall and down on the left, and then downstairs is where we will have lunch today. To get to the lunchroom, you go out like you're going out toward the lobby and take an immediate left, and there are stairs down to the basement of the building. It's the Mountain View room, and of course lunch is provided as mentioned before. We have a very full day today. Unfortunately, we're going to have to rearrange the agenda just a little bit because we're having some technical issues with the first presentation from Billy Allen. So we will start with, but before I do that, I do not want to forget to thank our sponsors. The sponsors make it possible for us to have these events and to not charge for registration. We do appreciate them greatly. They make these events possible. Our platinum sponsor is Intrado. Our silver level sponsors are Mission Critical Partners, Wald Architects and Engineers, Airbus Defense and Space, Motivations Incorporated, Motorola Solutions, and our bronze level sponsors are Alta Vista Group and Nice Recorders. If you work for one of those organizations, would you stand up? Putting you on the spot. Come on, Mary Jane. Everybody give a round of applause to our sponsors. As I said, if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to do these events free of charge, such as we do. So we do greatly appreciate that. But our first session today, since we're going to be doing Billy's presentation a little bit later, is going to be Text to 911 Progress Report and Early Adopter Lessons Learned. So Kimberly Culp, Bruce Romero, Jeff Irvin. Jeff may be still busy trying to work with the technical issues, so he may not be able to join us. But if you can join us, we'd appreciate it. And Trina Everhart, come on down here. We'll get you some chairs set up, and we'll start our first panel. Just so that everybody's aware, we are webcasting this event, and we will have to pass around the microphone for everyone who wishes to speak or ask questions, so that the people on the webcast will be able to hear. See if this microphone's working now. If you didn't hear, apparently somebody hit a power pole outside the building today. Was it you? Oh, okay. Okay, that microphone's not working. You can sit there. And Kimberly has graciously offered to moderate this panel. So Kimberly, I'll let you take it away.
All right, so I'm Kimberly Culp. I'm the Executive Director with Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority, and we have 5 PSAPs in our area, and we are Text to 911. So the first thing I want to do with the panel is I want to go ahead and go down and have everybody introduce yourself, your agency, and discuss where you are with the text implementation and what solution you selected for your agency.
I'm Trina Everhart. I'm the County Coordinator for Arapahoe County Emergency Services Communications. I apologize if my voice breaks a little. I'm now under the weather. We are text-enabled. We're doing training next week, and we had selected the Intrado solution, so it's integrated with our 911 phone system.
I'm Jeff Irvin with the Jefferson County Emergency Communications Authority. We're the authority for both Broomfield and Jefferson counties. We're in the stage of, we've selected the GEM 911 interface for our PSAPs. We're about 2 years out from another rev of our phone system that will enable a true I3 solution, so we've elected to go that route. We're in the process of discussions with TCS and the telephone service providers for deployment. We've got to get the TCS deployment completed. We're hoping to have a conference call next week to get that in the near term. Westminster Police has volunteered to be the focal for texting in our region until such time as the others are ready to come on board. So the strategy right now is perhaps for Westminster and Arvada to begin accepting for all of our 10 PSAPs, 7 primaries, 3 secondaries, and then eventually everybody will migrate over.
I'm Bruce Romero. I'm the director of the Pickens County Regional PSAP. We went live with the GEM product from TCS about 14 months ago with Verizon only, and since then in July and August of this year, we added the other 3 major carriers. We upgraded our phone equipment a little over a year ago, thought it was going to be ready for us to accept text messages on the phone equipment, and it is not. We're not exactly sure when that's going to happen, so we needed to get this in place before that, instead of waiting for that to happen.
Bruce, can you talk a little bit about what I call the FUD factor, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that you had or your dispatchers, managers had when you were implementing tools?
I wouldn't say that there was a terrible amount of FUD factor for me. I'm not, I'm one of those people who love hate because I love change.
That was not a good idea.
Hello? I actually enjoy change. It's fun for me to implement changes. A lot of my staff is not so crazy about that about me. But we did use a process of change management to make sure that the staff understood what was coming and that it wasn't going to be overwhelming to them. Through any other implementations throughout the country, even statewide in Vermont, there just was not an issue with overwhelming text messages coming in.
Jeff, can you answer the same question of how you're working with the centers to overcome any fear, and if they do have fear, what has been their concerns that they brought forward to you about doing this implementation?
I don't know that anybody's expressed any fear in particular. We just have a lot of wheels spinning right now, a lot of projects going, and they were, if anything, concerned about having to bring this on in addition to CAD upgrades and other stuff that we have going at the same time. So it was great that Westminster was willing, and Arvada were willing to kind of be leaders and step forward. Our delay has been in getting the product deployed and getting it implemented. I think probably the vendors are a little bit overwhelmed, and so we're kind of waiting and trying to get that coordination going. We did the request for service letters early on, and it turns out we may have done it too early. We probably should have had TCS on board and up to speed before we even did that. So it's kind of been a learning curve for us, but I don't know if there's any particular fear or feeling to be overwhelmed. You know, I think most of the managers have done their research on what folks have seen nationwide and what Pitkin has experienced, and so we're just excited to see it coming, wanting to get it as soon as possible, but just have a lot of projects going on in all of our PSAPs right now. It's a little overwhelming currently.
Trina, how about for your group? Any uncertainty or fear that you've been?
Well, we had concerns with our board. They felt that we'd be inundated, and we did educational piece for them and demonstrations, and brought in federal statistics and such for them. The dispatchers had the same fear that now they have this new technology on top of all their other duties, and how are they going to handle all that? And I think one of the fears too was that all the texts would come in as your 15-year-old son would text his buddies. So we actually turned that into kind of a game. I'd send out, I'd go on the internet and find some of the slang and abbreviations and send them out to the PSAPs, and the people that actually figured those out, I was giving out, small tokens of prizes to kind of get them over that. And in talking to some of the teenagers, they've, really stated that, yeah, they text their buddies that way, but if they're going to call 911, they're either going to call or they're going to make sure they spell it out because they want to make sure somebody's actually going to help them. So we've brought in some of that and done an educational piece as well. In all the demos now, I think we've gotten to a comfort level where the dispatchers really don't see this as going to be a high impacting, or, you know, it looks very familiar because they're by text. So we've kind of overcome that with just education and training.
I think on behalf of our PSAPs in Larimer County, the fear we had was the volume as well. If everyone remembers when you went live with the wireless 911, for those of us who've been in the industry long enough, we did have an increase in volume. We went from having one 911 call to having 10 because of the amount of cell phones that were in the area of the emergency. This has not shown that increase for us either. We did have quite a few text 911 calls last month. We actually had 53. So we had quite a volume, but we also are supporting a major university. So that could be a bit of a difference from our implementation. No. I want to talk and focus on the obstacles during implementation. If you encountered any obstacles, so really that could be for all of us since you're in the process of implementing this. So not so much obstacles after handling the calls, what you're facing with, but just during the implementation so people can get an idea of maybe how to navigate some of that. And if you want to start.
We have 7 PSAPs and 2 EOCs. So we really haven't seen any obstacles. The Intrado phone that we normally use for our 911 system was enabled. We had just done a major update to that, so that was available for us. I think more of our, if there was a challenge, was just making sure we got around to all the 9 sites to test. And we've done, there's various tests when you implement. There's a connectivity, there's transfers, there's short code testing. So the only obstacle is making sure we got those all scheduled. So, you know, we had 27 tests thus far and have another one next week at all 9 sites. So more coordinating that's really what we see.
I think for us, it's been kind of a sequencing, some sequencing issues of not understanding who all the players were and who to deal with. You know, there was the information that was put out by NINA and the FCC with regard to it. It looked like the first thing we needed to do was to get the request for service letters out, which once the decision was made that we were going to move forward, I did that. Got those out. We'd also been in contact with CenturyLink and TCS with regard to selection of GEM 911. We've looked at what our 3 possibilities were: the I3 solution, TTY solution, or the GEM solution, and we elected GEM. Then we started getting information from the telephone service providers that we'd sent requests for service letters to, with surveys asking certain information that they need in order to turn it on, per se. And those are somewhat confusing. Those survey forms that come out try to gather information for everything, all 3 types of service. So, you know, being that we were just going to be using 911, a lot of information is not needed. So we had to kind of filter that out as to what information it is we actually need to provide and gather from each of our 10 PSAPs for them. Then it seems the telephone service providers focus pretty much on the primary PSAPs because those are who are going to be intercepting or receiving the messages and then somehow transferring or relaying that information to a secondary if needed. We're in that unique situation because we have 3 secondaries currently. So those were kind of some of the stumbling blocks. We weren't sure initially who to deal with at TCS. I think we've got that finally nailed down. But it's been confusing to the IT staffs and what the requirements are going to be. I think we finally got a lot of it figured out. But once I get through all this process, I will try and enumerate the process and get it out there for everyone to understand what we went through. Kimberly was very helpful in providing us with information as to what her process was and who to contact, who to deal with. So hopefully we can share all this information on the Resource Center side and give everybody a leg up as they kind of navigate through this.
I would say that our process of implementation was pretty painless. I think probably the most difficult piece of it was getting our attorney to approve the contract. Beyond that, The implementation was very, very easy. At the point that we implemented, the process wasn't exactly clear yet. So my first contact was with Verizon. They were the only ones doing it at the time. And they facilitated the conversation with TCS. So I don't know exactly how it works now for new implementations, but my first contact was with Verizon. They got me in touch with the right people at TCS. We implemented with Verizon only through TCS, and then did the request letters later with the other carriers to bring them on board.
And I think on our implementation, it was very seamless and smooth. Venture Technology supports our system, and we have the Intrado integrated solution, so it went seamless. I mean, we had to push and try and make sure we met the deadlines that we had outlined, but working with the vendors, it was wonderful. And as everyone knows how the texting process is, you have two different TCCs, so you have TCS and Intrado and the connectivity between the two, so it can get cumbersome. And just kind of throwing it out here, it could be a good topic for a task force meeting for some of us to outline some of that background so everyone who's looking at implementing has a better picture of how that flows.
And I just might mention, I just got an email yesterday or day before from Verizon about putting together a conference call. We're going to try and do it next week at our advisory meeting. So maybe this is the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe they're going to help us to coordinate this.
The wireless companies have been remarkably helpful from our perspective when we went through the testing, and great to work with. Bruce, I want to go back to you and have you talk a little bit about how many calls you've received so far, if you have a rough idea, and what type of calls you're receiving.
I had a couple handfuls of calls. We've had less than 20 in 14 months. Our population base is much smaller, as you know, but we do have a large tourist population. The biggest user of the system so far, I think, is backcountry enthusiasts. People that are skiing in the backcountry, hiking in the backcountry. They might be able to make a phone call. They have just enough service, but we can't understand what they're saying, and then the calls drop. With text, they're able to get, as long as the system is able to do the handshake with the handset to say, yes, we recognize that you're within our service boundary, they're able to get the text message through to us. So that's one of the biggest users we've had. We also seem to be having an increase in our Spanish-speaking population using the service, which has presented some challenges that we've been using some creative ideas to make work for us through Google Translate and a few other services, but that's probably been our biggest challenge is other languages.
And from the calls that we've received up in Larimer County, they've ranged from weapons violations, drug violations, domestic violence, disabled community, so we've received a wide variety. We actually have one that we went live with from the press release, which was a burglary in progress where a young lady was living alone. 2 a.m. somebody broke into her apartment and she took shelter inside her bathroom and texted us. Ended up being a raccoon, so we were able to go live with that story. But it's a great transcript. If anybody wants to see it, we actually called her, talked to her, and she came out and did our press conference with us because it was just textbook of what you would want to see and another use for that tool. You've already teed it up on some of the challenges with the language translation, and in our solution we're allowed to do pre-canned messages, so we've got a handful of pre-canned typed out Spanish messages that says we cannot translate over text, please call 911, so we can conference the caller into language line. CSU campus with a lot of different language challenges there, so Google Chat or Google Translation is what they're looking at as well. The other challenge that we've talked about but we don't have our arms around is the EMD portion of it. So when you're dealing with a medical emergency and having to provide those EMD instructions across text, so you're typing it, but then we use the ProQA application integrated, so you're moving back and forth between the screens. So we're testing and practicing that, but that's a challenge. It's just a real challenge we're all going to have to be faced with if your centers are required to do EMD and ours are. I just have one more I don't know where they all went, but I wanted to go through public education efforts, and then we'll turn it over to questions from everybody, because I think we've got a few more minutes. So, public education plans. Jeff, if you want to start with, if you guys have established a plan of what public education you're going to do when you go live.
We've not. We know that Trina's got an effort going, and we were kind of hoping we'd kind of ride on the coattails of that. So, frankly, we haven't had that discussion yet. We do have Smart 911 implemented also, so we've done a lot of education around that, and that's a discussion that we will be having soon.
Kimberly was very kind to share some of her areas, her materials and such. We want to wait for our big public education and information until we're totally ready. So I'll probably go out second week of January. We have a PSA that was produced for us by one of the local agencies and their communication officers. We will put that out on our channel 8. All sites also have a web page. So we're going to start trying to push that out. I contacted all of the public service folks for all our agencies, and they're most willing to get some information out. We did 3x5, they're a little larger than that, maybe 4x6 cards with information as well as flyers. We did some business cards so that when these folks are out, they can easily hand those out to folks as well. And we did posters. A lot of our agencies do posters for their apartment buildings and schools. And then we're sending it out electronically as well to all of our the schools and hospitals in the area. So we just kind of wanted to wait before the press release went out when we were totally ready, rather than have any of those glitches or confuse the public on if it's ready or not. So hopefully by mid-January we'll be sending out the release and all the information.
Great. First, is there anything that you did that Trina didn't capture that was successful for you in the public education?
I don't really think so. We did a couple of TV commercials, placed them on YouTube, on Facebook, different social media, as well as some local television station. I also had some banners made up and placed those throughout different communities that are host hang banners, especially right now with the influx of our tourist population.
Great. Just two things from our perspective. I don't think you mentioned utility mailers. We did utility mailers, so all of our agencies cooperated with that. So we just provided the text, and then they stuffed it in the envelope, and so it went out on the utility mailers. And for those cities and partners that actually do a utility newsletter, they just saved us some real estate on there and included our information. So that was very successful. Our PSAs are up on our website. If you want to take a look at them, we were able to get Kyle Clark to work with us, and so we've got one that's done just to design, and then him doing the other PSA. So our website's lead@911.org if you want some ideas. Final thought. So the final thought, what I would like to ask everybody is, what's one thing that you want to leave everybody with that you feel you did right or you're doing right in this implementation? So just, if you walk away with anything, if you can walk away with this one piece of a best practice or the thing that went really well for you. And on behalf of LEDA, I think the one piece that we did right that I would highly encourage you to consider is to build in some sort of threshold. So you go live with all the texting to 911. We built in a 30-day period where we could just test internally, test the call flow. We engaged officers, we engaged firefighters, paramedics, dispatch employees from all the different devices. We went live with 5 carriers to just randomly place text messages so the dispatchers could get them, process them, and start feeling comfortable with that call flow. So I feel that if you're going to do this, you may want to consider having some sort of, yes, you're live and you've signed off, but to allow yourself a little bit of leeway before you do that big public education push. Jeff, go ahead, you've got the mic.
I guess the main thing, the big eye-opener that I learned was, we were thinking, well, we could get this whole thing up and going, and then at some point in time, certainly we'll flip the switch and be quote live. But once it's turned on, it's live. You may not have necessarily told the public that it's ready for prime time, but as you found out during that testing period, it is live. So that was the big eye opener for us, the takeaway for me. And once you activate it with telephone service providers, it can then accept text 911. So you've got to be ready for that when it comes in. I guess the other thing I would say is ask me this question after we're implemented, sometime in January or February. Again, I'll try and document the process I went through and try and give some insight into what difficulties and what good things we did along the way.
As Jeff mentioned, once you flip the switch, it is live. And my only experiences with GEM, I don't know about all the solutions and how it works, but there is a benefit to turning it on, and as long as you don't get a real call while somebody's signed in, you're fine. As soon as everybody signs out of the product, anybody attempting to reach text to 911 will get the bounce back message. So as soon as you're finished with your 2-hour testing window and everybody signs out of the application, you're good to go, and it's as if it doesn't even exist when everyone's logged out. I think that I guess my point here is I would encourage all of the PSAPs to take this on. It's not difficult. The implementation was pretty streamlined, pretty easy, and I really think it's important for our communities to have this service, especially the hearing and speech impaired communities. I think it's very, very important for them. They've been waiting for this service. They've been using text to communicate within their communities for a very long time, and it's time that we come on board with it.
I think what we did right was our education piece with our board and especially our staff. I was very anxious and excited about the project, and so I was just full bore going ahead, probably more with the technical aspect, and had to take a step back. And I think that it's really important to remember that educational piece for your staff, because they do have a lot going on. It's something new that they may be unsure of. So I think after I took that step back and went through that, I think that was very valuable for us and brought a comfort level for our sites.
So we're going to open it up for questions now. Shelley, you're the first one with a hand up. So Shelley's asking if we went live with shortcode testing, is that different than when we went live with the 911 testing? So for us, we did shortcode testing first, and we were successful in shortcode testing, but we weren't live. I mean, we could still continue to test with that shortcode they gave us if we wanted to. And then we went live with 911, and you could turn it off if you weren't ready. You could have them disable the service, but it was successful, so we kept everything enabled. The five-digit short code. Yes, Bill? I want to say it was 1911. Yeah, it was whatever they gave us for testing. It was a five-digit short code, correct. Any other questions? Yes, Bill? So from a short code process, that was what the carriers wanted to do, or I should say the TCCs wanted to do that. So that was part that they built into their process as a requirement. It allowed us to safely look at the call flow to make sure it's displayed correctly, proof of concept from the circuit that was installed, the router, did it route fine? Okay, if you kill the router, is it going to roll? So there's a lot. We have everything rolling. If the text message isn't answered, it will roll to a backup PSAP. So it was testing the proof of concept before working with the carriers and saying we're live. So No, it still hits the cell towers, correct. That's correct, yes. Yes, in the back. So I've gone through, my team has, and we look at the text messages, we look for education opportunities with the dispatchers, and we have some folks that are using it more frequently than not, but that's because they're in a situation where it is appropriate. So it's not an abuse, but it is inappropriate, and that's a disabled family that is actually living in our community that was experiencing some issues. So yes, some frequent people calling, but again, not an abuse of the situation. Yes, Lynn? So to summarize Lynn's question, it's do we have to consider anything different from a call flow management perspective on a big event? I'm going to answer it from an integrated solution, and then Bruce, I'd like you to answer it from a standalone application. We chose to go integrated with our phone system because we didn't want to have another system to be monitored or logged into. So the way it works on our solution is it actually lamps and rings in like a call, so you can manage it within the 911 calls as just another incoming call that you're managing. It's not like you have to look at a different screen. So you really can prioritize all of your incoming requests on one location, one phone system. We also have it built in to roll. So if you are overwhelmed like you can get with your 911 calls, we have ours rolling our text messages to our backup PSAPs as well. So we're treating them just like a voice 911 call. We haven't had, thank goodness, in Larimer County, we needed a breath this last year. We haven't had a big event and haven't been live with text to see if something unique happens. But there are also thresholds you can set up to say, I'm only going to allow so many text messages in this period of time before callers get a bounce back. So we have one threshold set up right now that says if we don't answer that text message after 60 seconds, so it rings in, but it doesn't, we haven't answered it, not only does it roll, and then if our backup doesn't answer it, the caller gets a bounce back and says you need to place a voice call. So you can really work with your carriers and your providers to get it exactly the way you want it, to have it work well from a call flow perspective. At least you can on the integrated solution. But Bruce, if you want to hit your standalone.
So in the standalone solution, and I don't know if it works the same way in the integrated solution or not, the ability for the call taker to continue processing voice calls while they're dealing with the text message is really important in our operation. The text messages are slow moving. It's not a very quick process. At times it could take us a half an hour to process a call, depending on how quickly they respond to the questions we may be asking them. So during that time, my call takers are still able to process voice calls and do the rest of their job that really doesn't seem to delay that piece of it, but they're doing this as an extra duty that doesn't seem to cause an impact to the voice call piece. But I would be interested in the integrated solution if that's still possible, or are you having to place the call on hold to take a voice call?
You can place the call on hold, and then if they respond back, you get an update flag so you know that they've sent you a text back. We haven't seen any delaying fast. It's very, very fast. It's not, I think the longest is if somebody's texting you on a device and they're slow, but again, you can put that on hold, answer a voice call, and then it alerts you when they've updated the message. So you can toggle and manage all of that. Yes, Cheryl had a question. I think that's a great point. Thank you very much. And Daryl just said that we are done. So we'll gave me the act. So obviously we'll be around most of the day. So if you have any other questions and want to talk to any one of us, please feel free to grab us and we'll help answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Thank you, Jeff, Trina, and Bruce. Just as a reminder, the Resource Center website has a page with text to 911 resources on it. If you go to the main page of the website, click on resources, then click on text to 911. I try to keep that as up to date as I can. I'm relying in part on you call center managers and 911 authority executive directors who have already implemented text to 911 to keep me honest, because since I don't work in a PSAP, what I have on there is things that I've learned from classes and from reading about it. You have the real world experience, so if you see anything on there that's not accurate or doesn't quite describe how it actually works, let me know. We also have links to 2 of the PSAs that Pitkin County put together for their text to 911, so you get some examples of what a public service announcement announcing text to 911 might look like. It looks like we're not quite ready for Billy yet. Is that correct? You guys still working on that? Okay. We're still working on that down there. We're trying to put together a demonstration for you from Billy. But until that is ready, we'll go ahead and move on with our next presentation, which is FirstNet. We have Kimberly Coleman and Doug Harder, and he's not on the agenda, but Ed Mills. And I'll hand this to you, and I'll get your presentation up on the screen. And actually, this is a good opportunity because I didn't build any breaks into the schedule. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break while we set up, and we'll see you back in here in 5 minutes. Thanks. Did anybody notice when I started the break what time it was? Okay, if everybody start making your way back to your seats, please, we'll get started again. So I think for the people watching at home, you could probably, in this general area here, in the spotlight right here.
Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Kim Coleman-Madsen. I'm the FirstNet Program Manager at the Governor's Office of Information Technology. I spent about 13 years in the PSAP community here in Jefferson and Broomfield counties, and also at the state working on land mobile radio issues. So we wanted to share about FirstNet, which is the partnership with the federal, state, local, tribal governments to build the first dedicated public safety broadband network using 4G LTE technologies for public safety across the country. We're going to show you a quick video from FirstNet to queue up so you understand how it applies to Next Gen 911 in the PSAP community. Then Doug Harder with FirstNet is going to speak for the bulk of the presentation, and then briefly at the end, Ed Mills with OIT, FirstNet Colorado Outreach, is going to talk about what we're doing in Colorado specifically. So thank you very much. Yep.
Fourth floor, with a shotgun, multiple shot signs, multiple people down. We're still waiting for the
When disaster strikes,
all units in the main triage group need to move left, away out of the line of fire.
when duty calls,
Everyone take 911. We just went through a tornado at Choctaw Road and the
America's first responders need dedicated, secure, priority communications.
We just went through the middle of it. We're on Choctaw Road. This one's down here. It's completely obliterated. And people hide all this way.
When multiple agencies respond together to save lives, they need the ability to talk to each other. Being connected from dispatch to the incident commander to the responders in the field is imperative to the successful resolution of an incident. FirstNet will empower first responders with state-of-the-art communication tools. A nationwide broadband network will connect police officers, firefighters, and EMS providers like never before. You know information is power, and FirstNet will put that power into the hands of those who need it most. Public safety is evolving. With new technology comes new opportunity to innovate and save lives. Next Generation 911 will revolutionize how the public requests assistance and reports incidents, allowing people to send videos, photos, and other high-speed data to call takers at public safety answering points throughout the country. The nationwide public safety broadband network will be a force multiplier for responding to emergencies, enabling information sent using NG911 capabilities to reach first responders in the field. This will help firefighters, law enforcement officials, and EMTs with awareness and decision-making even before they arrive at the scene. America's first responders need the very best tools we can put in their hands. An interoperable broadband network will deliver innovation and seamless communications to public safety with true priority. Find out more at www.firstnet.gov.
Morning. My name is Doug Harder. I'm with the federal FirstNet version. The headquarters for FirstNet is out in Reston. I'm actually here in Boulder at the CTO's office, the Chief Technology Officer's office. FirstNet is a part of the Department of Commerce, the NTIA. Go to the next slide. So we'll get into where that comes from. This is early in that video. There was the Washington Navy Yard shooting. So this is a still photo from that, from one of the security cameras in the Navy Yard. The title of the slide there is why FirstNet. During that shooting, there were over 35 cameras in the Washington Navy Yard. They all fed into a single security room, which was locked down, so nobody could get access to those videos. Had FirstNet been in place, they could have sent those videos through the broadband network out to responding police officers, firefighters, all of that, to their mobile devices, and they could have seen where this guy was wandering through the halls. They would have known if the hall was safe or not, clear or not. It would have given them a much better situational awareness of everything that was going on. because it was locked down in that security room, nobody saw the videos until it was finished, until it was all over. So that's the kind of an example of what FirstNet will provide to first responders in the field. So FirstNet was a recommendation of the 911 Commission in the report that came out. Yeah, there's a lot of clicking in all of this. Along with that came, so in 2011, when the report, it was the last recommendation that was filled. And these are a list of the associations that supported the reallocation of the spectrum and lobbied Congress to do that. So in 2012, the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012 created FirstNet and allocated the spectrum necessary to create the broadband network. That statement there, that's just the mandate that's within the law that gives us the ability to do what we're trying to do. So up on the top there we see the law, became Public Law 112-96. The governance of FirstNet is made up of 15 board members, and then every state has a governor-appointed spot, a single point of contact. In this state, it's Brian Shepard. There's Brian. There is a 40-member Public Safety Advisory Committee, the PSAC. They just met this week, actually, in Oklahoma City. They advise us. We give them questions. They advise us on the answers. It's made up of public safety folks from around the country. The funding, whoops, we'll get to the more detailed funding. Funding, $7 billion was allocated for FirstNet to begin building the network. Begin is a very important word there because, as you know, $7 billion will not build a network across the country. It's to get us going. Once the $7 billion runs out, we actually need to be a self-sustaining network. So we'll get into that a little bit more as well in the future. And then we have the 20 megahertz of bandwidth dedicated to public safety, right smack in the middle of the 700 megahertz spectrum. So the funding. There was $135 million that was allocated for grants, the SLIGP grant, State and Local Implementation Grant. Half of that money was held back for Phase 2. Phase 1 is ongoing right now. The implementation of the network was $7 billion. We were given a loan from the Treasury of $2 billion. The other $5 billion comes from the auctions that are actually going on right now. The auctions have far exceeded anyone's expectations, and we appear to be in pretty good shape to get that final $5 billion. Of course, the Chief Counsel has said until it's in the bank, it doesn't count. So, and then the growth and sustainment part. So this is the part where we have to be self-sustaining. And there's 4 ways there that we're going to be self-sustaining. So the first is the user fee. That's the same user fee that you're paying to Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, any other smaller company right now. FirstNet has the ability to charge that user fee as well, which makes us a unique federal entity, is that we can charge fees. Most federal entities can't do that. Lease fee for excess network capacity. So we don't expect that the public safety user community is going to use at any one time all 20 megahertz of spectrum. So we have the ability to lease the excess spectrum to a cell provider. That makes that very valuable to us. So that's another source of income for self-sustainability. The other one is a core network access fee. If the state, part of the law is that the state, at some point, we will provide the state with a state plan. That state plan will be given to the governor. The governor will have 90 days to either opt in to the federal FirstNet state plan, or at that point, if they choose to opt out, they will have to come up with their own plan to build the network on their own. There are some grant dollars that would be available to help build that, but they would be responsible for building that network. If the state opts out, we, FirstNet, have the ability to charge them a fee to connect to our core, because the law also states that FirstNet will maintain the core, not the state. So we can charge a fee to get back into that core. And then there's a lease fee for network equipment and infrastructure. That's the fourth one, because if we need to build or use infrastructure, we have the ability, if we build the infrastructure to fill a gap, let's say, we will then have the ability to lease excess space on that piece of infrastructure to other entities or whatever they want to hang off of it. We can lease that space. So that's the fourth form of income. So the idea is then that sustainment will, once the $7 billion runs out, that'll be our source of income to keep the network running and keep it going. Yeah, that's all I have for that one. So what are we shooting for? We're shooting to give first responders the best network possible to get their job done, to be able to do their job without being encumbered by the commercial networks being blocked for whatever reason. Too much use. The example that's given all the time is the Minnesota bridge collapse in 2007. The network shut down immediately on that one. Until about a month ago, I lived in San Diego. A couple years ago, we had a power outage. Somebody tried something in Arizona, and it shut down power in San Diego County. The cell network was completely lost in San Diego, all of San Diego County, which is a very large county. It's the size of the state of Connecticut, and nobody could talk on their cell phone. That's a problem, because that included police, fire, and EMS. If there was any calls for service, they also could not have any. They did not have any cellular connection. That's a big problem. So we will ensure that there is a development of a reliable and resilient network to provide nationwide coverage. It will work just as your current cell phone system works. Just because you're in Colorado and you're buying service in Colorado, if you get called to Nebraska on mutual aid, your device will still work because it will be a nationwide network. It's not like your LMR systems where they don't go state to state necessarily, or even region to region. Network must meet public safety's requirements and ensure priority and preemption during emergencies. When we say we can sell the excess spectrum, that means the commercial vendors can use that for their private citizens' use. The system, however, will know when that sector is getting busy. It will move private consumers off that spectrum and reserve the spectrum for the use of the public safety community. So when everybody else's phone doesn't work, that police officer, firefighter, EMT, the phone, the data terminal in their vehicle will still have access to the broadband network, and it will work. And the network will provide access to applications and broadband services. So just like you download applications now onto your phones, onto your tablets, you'll be able to do the same thing on this network. So the current state, you got to click through this a bunch of times. Right now, mission critical voice is on LMR, and non-mission critical, that's the blue part, data and voice, is on the commercial networks. All right, go to the next one. I have an animation that's for that. So that's the near-term vision. Is click again. That data will move to mission critical data will move to the FirstNet network. What the slide is not showing you is that mission critical data voice will not move to FirstNet network, not right away. And actually, LMR will be around for a long time. LMR will be available for a long time. I heard an interesting analogy in some of the consultation meetings we've been doing. At some point, and we don't know when, we have no idea when, mission critical voice will likely be available over the FirstNet. That does not mean that you'll be required to move off of your LMR systems. Just like today, many households make the decision to go from their landline to a strictly cellular household. You do that when you feel comfortable with it. You don't have to do it right away. So the same thing will happen with mission critical voice. When the agency feels comfortable, whenever it becomes available, when the agency feels comfortable to move off of the LMR system, then they can do that. There are going to be agencies that are going to choose never to move off of LMR, and that's just the way it is. We understand that, we know that, it's fine. So this is kind of a conceptual design approach. What we see there are a series of RANs, towers. The red circles are showing the existing RAN coverage, which would be commercial. Okay. So what FirstNet will likely be doing is partnering with someone, and we'll be able to connect band 14, which is our spectrum, to their existing towers, and they'll be, see that they turn purple, that means they're co-located. So you'll have the vendors coverage as well as the FirstNet spectrum coverage. We won't necessarily go to all of their tower sites. We'll go to the ones that we need to get the coverage that the particular state desires. So if there's areas then that where the state desired coverage that the commercial vendors are not covering, again, FirstNet has the ability to then build out infrastructure and provide band 14 coverage in those areas. If there's still areas where it just does not make sense to do terrestrial coverage, and we're looking at satellite overlay with deployable vehicles to provide coverage in those areas. Colorado has a lot of those kinds of areas where that would be the option. If you go back to that real quick, I just want to go kind of off the slide topic just a little bit to the panel that was up here before, comment that I was thinking that I talked to Kim about a little bit. So the way these work is there's 3 sectors on every tower, and when you clog up a sector, that's when you lose your cell coverage in that sector. What happened in that Minnesota bridge collapse is that the sector that covered the bridge very quickly ran out of capacity because everybody was sending phone calls, text messages, and everything else saying bridge just collapsed. The other problem they had was that there was a sporting event letting out of a stadium right next door. Some 30,000 people leaving the sporting event. Police department said, they contacted the stadium, said, can you please put a message out to not leave the stadium, the bridge is collapsed, please don't come out. So what did that do? Everybody ran out of the stadium, right? So you got 30,000 more people coming into this sector trying to make phone calls. So the problem, and this is a comment I wanted to make to the panel here, but they'll cut us off. So, is that when you try to send a text message and the sector the capacity is covered or taken up, it's all taken up. That text message goes into a queue, and it will send when it's able to send. When you receive that text message, you see a timestamp on it. That is the time that you received the message, not when it was sent. So on this text to 911 thing, I think you need to be very careful that these messages may have been sent, especially if it's a large-scale emergency type thing, they could have been sent hours ago. So in your public safety public service announcements and your education, you might want to recommend to the people, when you send this in to us, timestamp it. Tell us what time you sent this to us, because we might be receiving it far out into the future when it's OBE, it's overcome by events, it's possibly the person sending it has deceased by that time. You just don't know what could happen. You hope that certainly doesn't happen, but I mean, if it's that bad, it could, if someone's crushed under something, that could be that bad. So ask them to timestamp those so that you know when the message was sent, and you can work on it. So, just a comment that I wanted to make about that. So components and choices, this is more probably from the overall state perspective, but there's been a lot of confusion out there about what is the state responsible for, what is the federal government responsible for, who has to do what. So go ahead and do that again. So the core network is FirstNet's responsibility. That's on us. We got that one. We will build that out. The state doesn't have to do anything regarding the core network. There's no more click. Sorry. The RAN. So in an opt-in scenario, where the state says yes, we like your plan, go for it. that's on us as well. We will build out the RAN. The state does not have to fund the RAN, does not have to pay for the RAN. There's no money coming from the state to build the RAN. That all comes out of FirstNet's vendor partners and funding. If the state opts out, the state is then responsible to build that RAN. Like I said, there will be grant money to help. Don't think there's going to be so much grant money that is going to build the whole thing. So there will be costs involved. And then the devices and service, that becomes an agency's choice. Do you as the agency want to join the FirstNet network, broadband network? It's the same choice you make today. Do you want to join Verizon's, AT&T's, Sprint, T-Mobile, a local carrier? It's the same thing. We will be one more choice that you will have to make, and it will be our job to give you the value proposition of why we think you should come to the FirstNet network, and these are your current carriers. Again, that's kind of an odd thing for a federal government agency to do, but that's the way this network has to work out. Shared goals with NG911. Technology modernization. Trying to get the newest, best technologies out there for you to use. National focus. We're trying to get connectivity to both urban and rural areas. Rural is a real big thing. There's a mandate in the law. We must meet rural milestones. The law did not define those milestones for us. So we have to figure out what those milestones are, and then we have to meet those milestones. Improved emergency response. Just what it says. We want to get the best response possible out there. That includes both the public, and it also means we want to get the best information out there for the responders to keep them safe as possible as well. And then planning and governance. They both require planning and governance to ensure successful deployments. So what is FirstNet to NG911? It is the enabling equipment and service to make it work, because NG911 is only part of it is the public getting things to you through non-traditional means, right? So in order to get those non-traditional means back out to the public safety responders is going to require something like FirstNet. So this slide here shows several scenarios. I quickly pulled it up when Kim was talking about her raccoon intruder to see if I had that on there, and I didn't create this slide in it. It's not on there. But it's similar to the one down in the bottom right there. That's supposed to be a bank robbery, and what it basically is there is you see just a general citizen taking a video of the bank robber who took off with someone's purse, and they're able to send that up to dispatch, and then dispatch can then send that video to the responding officer so they can see a description, not just a written description or a verbal description, but a physical description. You can see a picture of the guy now, or if it's a car and they take a video of the vehicle leaving and they get the license plate, now you have a picture of the car with a license plate. It doesn't have to be a video, it can be a still picture, but it can be sent back. So the next slide kind of does the same thing, but it's pretty pictures, and it was fun creating this slide. It's a little more Colorado as well, so I brought it in some events from last year that some of you probably remember with all the water that we had. I was still in San Diego then. Go ahead and just... so there's a map that can be sent from a helicopter or something, go into an EOC or to a responder. If you click the next one, you can get a more close picture. It's actually the same area. If you look on the bottom left of the top picture there's a little triangle of houses with some trees. And if you look at the top right of the second one there, that's actually those trees. So it's a little bit different perspective, but you can then get more of the live picture, what it looks like on the ground. The other thing you can do is from the EOC, if you wanted to, go ahead and click it again, send out something like the flood inundation map to the responders that are on the ground so they can see a map of where's the water at this time. And you can send that down to a cell phone or to a tablet or a mobile data terminal vehicles like that. So these are things that, and then of course, I had a video in here. but I didn't have permissions to use the video, so I took it out. But the video type thing, that's really the bandwidth intensive type things that that require this type of a network. So you could have a situation. The video was the Dillon Road collapse during the flood, and so you could have a situation there where somebody calls in, hey, the road just collapsed, and I think the picture I saw, there was 3 trucks sitting in the water or something like that. Well, the dispatcher could then say to the person calling in, can you send me video or pictures of what we're looking at? And they could then get that video to the fire department, who's going to respond to this, and the tow truck companies potentially, who's going to come in and try to pull that vehicle out. You know, are there power lines that are down as well that maybe in the conversation with the dispatcher you didn't get to that point? But when you start looking at the video, you see, whoa, there's some power lines there. That's going to be a problem. We better call the power company as well. So that's where this network can come in to really help out, is with the private citizens, to allow them to send data through dispatch, and then dispatch can send it out to where it needs to go. EOCs can send data down that they're receiving. It's very powerful to send all of this pictures and video. The other thing, like I said, with the Navy Yard shooting, that was live video. They could stream that live video through this thing. That is bandwidth intensive. And commercial carriers just don't have the ability, with everybody else making phone calls and trying to send text and video and going on Facebook and everything else, to allow public safety to do that. So with the dedicated bandwidth, you will be able to do that sort of thing. So how does this work? The state plans have to be developed in concert with the states. So that's where we get the state consultation piece. There are 7 points that we must hit, and that's by the law. These 7 points are listed in that public law. And these are things that we must consult with the state on in order to create that state plan. We can't just sit in a vacuum in our nice federal offices and create a state plan and say, here you go, this is what you got. We have to talk to the state and say, what do you need, what do you want? And that's been a different paradigm for the states that we've gone to so far. We've done 8 of these consultation meetings, and states are not used to the federal government coming down and saying, what do you want, we'll build it for you. Or do our very best to build it for you, I should say. They're not used to that. They're used to the federal government coming down and saying, here's what you get. That's not the case here. The law was specifically written so it wasn't the case. So in the initial consultation meeting, what we're talking about is the coverage areas of the network, and we're talking more in objectives. What are your coverage objectives? Not what does the coverage map look like? They're very different. So your coverage objectives would be, we want public safety buildings covered, we want stadiums covered, we want the interstate covered, we want areas where there's high population density covered. So we're looking at those kinds of things in the initial consultation meeting. And then we're also looking at who are the users. And that kind of goes into a lot of those areas up there. But who are the potential users on this, and what do they currently do? What do they currently have? What kind of commercial systems are they hooked up to now? And how much are they paying for it? That's very important to us, so that we can be competitive. There will be additional consultation meetings that cover all of these points. Consultation can take on many forms. We will definitely be out more than once to meet with the state in a forum, consultative forum. The RFIs that go out, the public notice for comment that goes out, those are all considered consultation by the law. Webinars are consultation. We do a lot of webinars. Brian can attest to that. We have a lot of phone calls with them and webinars. It all goes into play where we ask a lot of questions. Figure out what the states need. So this lovely eye chart was the plan. It was 40 some odd steps to go through the whole thing, and we have simplified it. And again, this one too. Sorry. Yeah, it was really simple when it was blank, right? So the acquisition piece of it, so we put out an RFI and a notice of public comment. We've received the responses to those. And they're currently reviewing all of those responses and putting together summaries. The prep workshops were done by OEC, and there was also some regional ones. I think Colorado had one of those. I'm not sure exactly when it was. I think last November. I think Brian came out for that. Or was it Kyle? Whatever, doesn't matter. Brian Hobson and I worked for ICTAP for OEC for a long time, and we both just came over to FirstNet together. He's still out in San Diego, but he did many of those prep workshops. The users and coverage outreach box there, that is the initial consultation meeting, of which we will be having one of those here in Colorado in the near future. The next one there is that review the state results and priorities. So at that initial consultation meeting, we give homework. Kind of a bummer, but we do. So the second one then, we're looking at how to review the data that comes in from that homework and any additional type things that we can talk about at that point in time. And then we go into those two meetings feed the RFP development and the RFP evaluation that's going on. Once we choose a vendor partner or partners, that will help us develop the draft plan, because there's a lot of information that's going to come from that vendor as to what goes into that draft plan. You saw on the previous slide, there was things about tower locations and actual coverage and training. So that's the sort of thing we're going to ask the vendors, how would you do this with us? And so that stuff will end up in the state plan. That state plan will then go to the governor for their decision. And the important thing to see here is that the consultation does not end with the governor's opt-in, opt-out decision. There will continue to be consultation in some form, because we also know that the initial phases of the network deployment will probably not fill all of the needs of the state. So if there's a hole that's discovered in coverage, or there's additional capacity needed somewhere, we will continue to work with the state in a consultative manner to fill those holes. And then on the bottom there, you see the stakeholder input. So we have the PSAC that we talked about, the states are stakeholders, obviously, the organizations for police and fire, EMS, dispatch. We're in discussions with all of them, APCO, all those types of organizations. We have the outreach and education piece where we send information out. The state sends that information out to the users. And then there's the operational type stuff, which comes from the police departments, fire departments. What do you need this thing to do, this network to do? So outreach. So the outreach plan for FirstNet's plan for that is a regional approach. FirstNet is currently in the process of hiring regional outreach managers for each of the 10 regions, and I think we're actually going to create. There was a recommendation to create an 11th region for the island, the federal terms we call it OCONUS, outside the continental United States, territories and states, because they do have unique needs and issues. Water, huge distances. So they're going to create the regional leads, and they will have support underneath them for outreach and information within those regions. That all is going to come from the Reston offices where our headquarters are located. The regional leads, I should say, will be in your regions. So it's not going to be somebody who's assigned to Region 8 that's sitting in Reston, Virginia. It will be someone who lives somewhere in Region 8 that will be the regional lead for Colorado, the Reston region. The PSAC engagement, we have ongoing contact with weekly calls with the chair. The chair is Harlan McEwen. I don't know if anyone recognizes that name. And a review of materials. There's a steady schedule of speaking engagements at their events. We send folks out to them all the time. In-person meetings with the full PSAC twice a year. That happened last week. Oklahoma City. Monthly conference calls with their executive committee, and we are forming 2 new working groups for tribal and early builder groups to figure out how we need to do that. And something else that wasn't covered in here before is the tribal engagements and the federal engagements. We have requirements to engage both those communities as well. The federal engagements is not something that the state needs to worry about. We will deal with that fed to fed. Want to deal with that? The tribal ones are a little bit tricky because of the relationships between tribes and states. Some have very good relationships, and some don't. So we're working closely with the tribal organizations to figure out how to engage with them and do a consultation with them as well. So the most important thing is to stay involved and follow the social media sites, contact your spot. Brian may not want to pass it on to someone. I don't know if you want them to contact you directly or there's 3 of you there, so participate in the process. Coming to meetings like this is great. The consultation meeting would be a good place to come to. Visit the FirstNet website. There's a lot of information that gets updated constantly. And we do have a Twitter account that they are constantly updating. There's the YouTube channel. I think there's a Facebook page also. So I think that's it. Are there any questions? Oh, here's Brian's contact information, my contact information, and the website. That's up there. Twitter. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Excess spectrum. So the network itself, I'm sorry, yeah, so the question was, how do we determine what is excess spectrum? So there will be parameters put into the network through the system itself to say that when the capacity of a certain sector reaches the tipping point, we now have to move the commercial people off of the band 14 spectrum and onto the commercial vendor spectrum only, and reserve that band 14 spectrum for public safety users. And it's dynamic, and it's on the millisecond level that it's doing these queries. It's faster than you and I could ever possibly think to do it. Yeah. How do we initially determine what that threshold is? That's still to be determined by the CTO, by the engineers, and all that. We have to. That's another reason why when we do the consultation meeting, we'll be asking the state to provide some speakers to give us use cases of events that they've gone through and how something like FirstNet maybe could have helped them, and to what level would we have needed to provide to you? At what level would you need to have pushed everyone off of the network and allow them? The thing to remember about this is that we have 20 megahertz of spectrum, and there's a lot of numbers out there. The one that I keep hearing the most, and I don't know how accurate it is, it's probably not very accurate at all, is that there's 5.4 million public safety users across the country. The reason it's not accurate is because nobody's defined public safety users. Is it just police, fire, EMS? Does it include public utilities? Does it include Department of Transportation? All people that you might need to call in an instant. So it's a nice number. It's probably somewhere in the ballpark, but I don't know how accurate it is, but 5.4. Verizon has over 100 million users. Okay? So you're now sharing that spectrum with 100 million users nationwide. The thing to remember, though, is 100 million users nationwide are not all sitting in one sector at the same time. So when that sector gets too busy, we will have 20 megahertz of spectrum for you for public safety in every single sector, on every single land tower. And you're going to have how many public safety folks in that area at one time? A couple hundred at most. So you're going to have a lot of spectrum that are available for your use. And the term they've been using as far as how to give that to guarantee that you have that is ruthless preemption. Meaning, if you're there on a cell phone call and the system determines that that sector is getting too busy, your call is over. It's finished. Unless it can move it to the commercial spectrum without conference call. So that's going to have to be a function of the device. There's going to have to be something on the device that says this is a public safety device. That when that priority and preemption piece takes place, these devices still get access to the spectrum. It's not a list of names. It's by the device. Right. So that's a question that's been asked a lot: is does a police officer then, who does not have a department provided cell phone, can they go get a FirstNet phone for their personal use? Okay, so something with that chip or whatever it's going to be that says this is a priority phone on the system. My feeling is we have to. I don't know, but that's just Doug's feeling at this point. But I think we have to. But it's at a device level. It's not going to be a database of names or something. It's a device thing. Anything else? You guys are easy. Joe's not here. Is he coming to the consultation meeting? Yes, ma'am. So I think personally that from the 911 side, it's more on the outgoing stuff. How are you going to get stuff to the responders? Because when you're a 911 center, you're not going to be hooked up to a cell network to get your internet connection and that sort of thing. You're hooked up to your fiber network within or Wi-Fi or something like that within your building, right? Oh, that you have to ask them.
Excellent question, Lynn. So we just actually set our consultation date with FirstNet as January 14th, and we are actively putting together our list of folks to be there. We have limited capacity, but the 911 stakeholders are on that list. So several of you will be getting a invitation to our initial state consultation meeting, probably the next week. You think, Kim? Yeah, probably the next week, you guys will be seeing the invitations for that meeting. But yeah, that will be January 14th. And so essentially from that, we'll hopefully get a lot more direction from FirstNet about how we're moving forward. Right now we've been focusing on outreach, events like this. We're really going to start to hit, starting in January, we've got an RFP out for some folks to help us do some coverage modeling and analysis. So starting in 2015, our focus is really going to be getting things done. And so we're going to use this consultation meeting as kind of kickoff for that, and we'll figure out how to integrate everyone, including the 911 community, into the process of getting things done.
Anything else? We have had pretty good 911 representation at the consultation meetings that I've attended so far. They've had a lot to say. Some of them. Anything else? I'll go over to Kim here. Or Ed.
Thank Thanks, Doug. We want to just quickly let you know what we're doing in the state. I'm Ed Mills. I'm the outreach manager for FirstNet for the state of Colorado, and just part of a great team here in Colorado. Next slide. And so, as you already know, FirstNet is going to be the first public safety broadband network that will provide emergency responders with data and cellular usage. I was really excited when I heard about this because I've been doing this for some time. I have profound respect for what you all do. I have a lot of friends that sit in 911 and dispatch centers, and you know what? You make us look good out in the field. But I really got this when I was getting ready for a wildland fire, and you know, I was trying to tie up my boots to get ready, and I saw the 911 helicopter going around, you know, on television, and I heard the command staff as well as dispatch. They were struggling with how big the fire was, and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could just use a smartphone and maybe send a footage of the video? And so it's great to be a part of this project. We think it's going to be a force multiplier. It'll help keep our community safer, solve more crimes, and keep our first responders safe. Kim found this, and this is great. It all begins with a PSAP. Approximately 2/3 of all the calls come through on a mobile phone. Hasn't the world changed in even the last 4 or 5 years? And so, you know, what FirstNet's going to do is it's going to help us to leverage the technology that's already there. We know that the public has already adopted it, but it'll allow us as first responders to be able to use the technologies that's out there. I'm a volunteer firefighter with Evergreen Fire Rescue, and I use my cell phone. I can see where the responders are at, I can see where my medics are at, and I can start to put in my mind when I take command of a situation, you know, where I need to put resources. So there's a lot of power. So we just want to let you know quickly how we handle this. Colorado's approach is we have a collaborative, multidiscipline, local, tribal, state, and governing body. And I'll show you where you can find out all about those folks and what their backgrounds are. But we have a county, tribe, state agency specific outreach and data gathering approach. We are right now in the outreach. We're going out. We're doing the outreach to date. We've been to 34 counties. We have 2 tribes in the state of Colorado. So we've been to one of the tribes. So we've got 50% of the tribes in the state done. And we expect by the end of the year, we're going to come close to having 40 of our counties done of the 64. And then Kim and I have a goal to try and get the rest of those counties left done within the first 3 months of the new year. And I'm sorry, I was going forward. We have I need to go back. I guess I hadn't finished. We have an iterative consultation and design process, comprehensive agency list, data usage requirements. We're going through that. In fact, when we go to the counties, it's not us telling them what they need to do. We really see it as opening a dialogue between us as a liaison for FirstNet and that county to find out what the county needs, every department, every agency, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have county and agency define coverage goals. And when we get into phase 2, we will have an asset identification process. And again, that's what Doug was talking about. That's really going to be the way that this gets done. Is we've got to find out what assets are out there, what's available, and what can be used. And we also encourage agency-wide engagement and feedback on that planning process. And your participation is vital. In fact, we'll show you a slide where you're really going to come into play. Okay. So this is just our governing body, and again, I'll show you our website and show you where you can find this information. But we have representatives from all over. You can see way out there on the west side, that's Paula Creasy, who is representing rural Colorado. We have our 2 tribes down. We've got representations from MSAC, so the emergency medical folks. Over there on the east side, we've got the sheriffs of Colorado are represented. We've got the police chiefs, the Colorado fire chiefs, CML, CCI. You can see the Colorado Department of Public Safety is up there. You can see also Brian's logo's up there for Office of Information Technology. And just recently we got on somebody from the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment. And we also have a representative that is representing organized labor. So we're trying to get as many representatives on this governing body so that everyone has a voice. And this comes from Mesa County. Part of what we want to do is, you see those little dots, kind of hard to see, but you'll see the clusters there. What we're going to need and how we'll need your help is we need to know where the incidents are at in our state, whether they're medical calls, fire calls, police calls, and then we need to throw a coverage map up against that and find out where those holes are and what we need to concentrate on. And so your participation, your help is going to be very important in this. And there we go. We need your help. Doug's already talked to the state consultation process, and I'll show you in just a couple of slides how you can find out where we're at. Can you hit it one time? Oh, one more time. That's the Pac-Man, just to let you know he's going to eat all that stuff. And so Colorado's initial consultation meeting is anticipated Q1 2015, and as we were just talking about, we should be able to let you know when that is specifically, and I'll show you where you can find that information. All right. So here's where you can find the information. We have put up a website at the Office of Information Technology. Kim and I work on this, and so we let you know where we're at, what we're doing, and you can find it at firstnetcolorado.org. In fact, I'll leave some flyers on the back if you want to pick one of these up. It has the URL on the back of it and also our contact information. And as Brian said, you can contact any one of us for anything. You can also, if you would like, on the website, you can go in and you can sign up for our newsletter if you're not already getting it. And what we try to do is we try to highlight things that are very important, things we think you're going to be interested in and want to maybe do some more study on. And so we send that out about every 21 to 31 days. There's an ancient proverb that says, without vision, the people perish. So we like to give you the vision of what FirstNet is doing and where it's going. And then you can also follow us on Twitter. You can see there, FirstNet CO. In fact, Kim's back there putting out a couple of tweets about our meeting here today. We'll be over with the Colorado Division of Fire and Safety and Prevention here in the state in a few minutes, and we'll put some stuff out there. And the next one. And there's our contact. As I said, we'll give you one of these flyers, and you can look that up. Okay. And just a disclaimer, you can read that at your leisure. And then we just want to open it up, next slide, for any questions. Do you have any questions for Kim, Brian, Doug, or myself?
I think Gwen's going to ask the technical question here, but I'm going to ask just a bureaucratic question. How is Colorado interfaced with this national FirstNet board? I understand they're meeting next week in Utah, and it sounds to me like they are, I don't want to say barely organized, but are we represented? I see that we're in a region, Region 8. Some of our neighboring states are in two different regions. How is Colorado and our region protected with that national board?
Thanks, Commissioner. Excellent question. So the FirstNet board was set up by the statute, the federal board. It defines, who's on there and so forth. So basically, I think there's been some frustration that there's limited representation from the public sector. There's a new individual, ex-governor from Vermont, who's on the board now to represent states. There's Jeff Johnson, retired fire chief. So there's some discipline-based folks on there. Mayor from Houston is on there now. So the initial board, we were a little frustrated with the makeup of the initial board. They seem to rectify some of that by having some folks that represent public interests a little more. From our state perspective, really, it's the FirstNet board kind of drives the national policy, and it's up to our governing body and myself as the SPOC to kind of drive our state strategy and keep that coordination. So that's really right now what it is, and we're looking forward to this initial consultation meeting as kind of the official kickoff of how we're actually going to interface in terms of getting things done. The last year and a half has really been about getting the message out. And letting FirstNet get kind of its feet underneath it. So now we're going to kind of try to push things a little forward. Our state is probably more advanced than most other states because of our pilot project and the experience we have with this. So, that is one of our frustrations so far as a state, is that we seem to kind of keep hitting a wall that, FirstNet's not quite ready to go as fast as we want to move on this thing. So those are some of the issues we hope to remedy in this coming year.
Also, if I could add to that, FirstNet is just over a year old, 18 months old or so. They went from one employee a little over a year ago. We have 83 federal employees now. So we are bound by the federal hiring system, which to come from another federal agency is still not easy to get into FirstNet. So there's that issue. And the other thing that is really slowing us down is the federal acquisition regulations. We are bound by those. We must follow them. And as anyone knows who's tried to purchase anything through the federal government, it is long, tedious. Also, from a regional perspective, as far as the board goes, the police chief of Salt Lake City Police Department is now a board member. So you do have regional representation. Not every region does have representation, but you do have a regional representative on that board from Colorado's perspective.
Does it work? Okay. I probably should have reversed my questions. So I think this comes back to FirstNet here. Just trying to understand the concept of the excess spectrum that's going to be used and calls that are coming in through 911. I don't have a clear picture, and maybe it's yet to be figured out how much of the information that first responders are going to need is actually coming in and through the 911 side versus otherwise directly into a first responder organization from somewhere else other than through 911 and dispatch. But I can kind of envision when you have that chart up there that says there's going to be extra spectrum out there, that if you're in some of these remote areas, I can see the wireless providers wanting to take advantage of the fact that FirstNet's deployed something out there to actually be their commercial access into 911 and into that network, where they wouldn't otherwise find it economic to put the towers out there. So then if you end up with a situation where you have to cut back and just prioritize the use of that network for the first responders, do you kind of have a chicken and an egg issue here, where people aren't going to be able to get the calls or the video or whatever into the network, and they're going to be cut off? So how are you balancing that prioritization and things being sent back into the commercial network, but there really isn't a commercial network other than the first responder network?
So I think when you think about it, there's really going to be, we have to have multiple approaches to this. In the urban areas and the densely populated areas within the urban and suburban, where there's population, from the PSAP perspective, the information will come in just as it always does. There will be so the information coming in will look just the same, because if it does happen to come in on this spectrum, it will still come in through a wireless carrier through their mechanism, so you won't see a difference. And then the FirstNet network will basically be the same thing. That's how you will push the information out to the field. Now, there will be your point about the very rural areas where there is no cell phone coverage right now, or extremely limited, and they say, hey, we can use the spectrum to do that. You're right. We will have to really think that through in those areas. On a day-to-day basis, it won't matter. But if there is a crisis event in one of those areas, we do have to think that through. And the great thing about the technology, with the LTE technology, is essentially you can pre-build, there's prioritization. Basically, think of it 0 through 9, 0 being the highest priority you can get. So what we can do is when we go through those processes, we can analyze that and say, okay, what is in these areas, what is the minimum threshold that we would need bandwidth and spectrum to say this spectrum really has to serve two purposes. Most areas it serves one primary and one as a backup, but in some areas it'll serve both. So we'll have to go through and preset those thresholds and say, okay, how do we prioritize this? It might be a balance. We might say we might have to limit video, in situations like that, to make sure that citizens do have at least some kind of spectrum to get basic emergency services through. So that's part of the planning process that we have to do and work. That's why we're going county by county, because we realize when we sit down with the Denver fire chief, his needs and issues are a heck of a lot different than when we go down to Archuleta County yesterday and sit with those folks. So that's why we're going county by county and working with individual counties, because we know every county is different, and that's how we'll integrate that.
Remember what I said before about each sector on that tower has the same spectrum. So in a rural area like that, you look out here, just right here, on the streets right outside this building, you could have thousands of people on any given sector at any given minute, and nobody's losing cell phone coverage. And in those rural areas, what's the likelihood that you're going to have that many people, even responders in an initial part of the response, taking up that kind of spectrum? 20 megahertz of spectrum is a huge, huge amount of spectrum. So it's you got to remember the size also of the amount of people on them. So I don't know that it's going to be the whole. We've started to look at it from a point of view of the priority and preemption part really becomes less of a problem, we believe, at this point in time in the rural areas as it does in an urban area.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity to let us come speak with you today, and you have our contact information. If you have any questions, please do reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kimberly and Doug and Ed, we really appreciate it. Unfortunately, we're still having some technical difficulties with trying to get Billy's demonstration to show up on the screen, but we got about 5 minutes until lunch. Billy, are you able to stay? If you can give your presentation without, I know we can't do the demonstration, but if you want to speak about your topic, we really appreciate it, and then we'll go to lunch after that.
Hi guys, how many of you guys, I'm gonna ask you, okay, if I ask the audience questions, right? You okay with that? How many of you guys are Denver Broncos fans? 60% of it. How many of you guys know the country western two-step dance? Smaller group, okay. It's going to be pretty easy. What I'm going to talk about is basically 2 steps on here. And, what I do is I'm deaf doorknob, so when you guys are asking me questions, don't feel insulted if I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at my ears right over here. And she's signing to me while you guys are speaking. So don't feel insulted if I'm not looking at you, but I'm paying attention, trying the best I can. I'm Billy. I'm also the chairperson of the board for the Independence Center in Colorado Springs. Here I'm telling you the 2-step. And the 2 steps are, first thing you talk about the communication devices, talk video relay services and cloud. And then the other part of it is going to talk about the issues that are going behind it. There's 2 steps in there. That's why I asked you about that. First of all, the reason why I asked you about the Denver Broncos Stadium, how many of you guys know how many people can fit in that stadium? You guys know how many people can fit in that stadium? 60,000, pretty close, 50,000. So it's getting colder when you say 50,000. About 75,200 people can fit in there. So the population we're dealing with would have to fill up a Denver Broncos Stadium 6 times to get to the deaf and hard of hearing population in the state of Colorado. So to give you an idea of the size of how many people we're dealing with, yeah, we're kind of underground, we're buried, and then we have the little secret club meetings or stuff like that, is why they call it that. But the other thing is, we use special phones on there. And special phones are kind of Skype, which unfortunately I cannot show you on the video phone right now. It's Skype, but I see it on the screen, so what happens, if you don't mind standing up, please. And if you mind standing right over here. And so if I want to call him up, I make a call through my Skype-like device and get connected to the interpreter, which is 24/7, 365. And that woman probably got caffeine hooked up to her IV or something like that all night long, I don't know. And so they also provide confidentiality to the 24 hours, 365. And then she would get connected to Mr. Branson here. And so if I wanted to call him up, I'd go to the interpreter connect to that. But the funny thing is, when I start signing, he's hearing the guy named Billy. But, I mean, he's seeing the guy named Billy, but he's hearing the woman's voice on there. So maybe have a sexual change or something like that, I don't know. So. But the whole idea is that so they connect, and that's how I make my calls on there. Now, there's two different ways on the calls. There's also people who cannot speak very well, and there's also people who are hard of hearing. They have another device called Captel. And it's kind of like the video phone, but the difference is the video phone you stop the internet line via IP. Captel is a little gadget device where I can't speak very well, but I can type. So I would type, and the relay operator would connect to and tell him what being said on the screen. So you kind of get the idea what's happening here, the three-way thing going on there. And that's usually hooked up to your landline. Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful person there. So those are the two basic about that. That's the first step. First step to understand the video devices and the phone call. The issue is a couple of things. Number one, when you're calling to the video relay service, the dispatch center, the 911 center cannot track down where I'm at. That's an issue. It's hard. It's very difficult because the interpreter can be anywhere in the United States randomly. So when I make that call at 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it is, I have no control where that call is going to be picked up from to connect to there at. So that's the first thing is I get connected anywhere in the United States randomly. The second thing is the tracker thing. So sometimes they can see on their screen that I'm calling from Colorado Springs, this address here. And it displays that, and they can dispatch that to the local place. The other problem is, too, is, for example, you guys can simply pick up the phone, call 711 or 211, right? I can't do that because my interpreter is probably not in the state. It goes outside the state and it bounces back inside the state. So I'll get the 711 in the state where the interpreter is at. So you kind of get the gist here where it's kind of hard to track down where I'm at. So if you imagine an emergency comes up, it's a bit challenging. The other problem, the issue is we had a spill, chemical spill about 6 years ago over in Larkspur area, and the train derailed, and the chemical spill would happen. And so what happened was the sheriff department would call in the 5-mile radius and tell them to evacuate, get out of the area because you don't want to start breathing in the chemicals going on in there. And so that call would go to all the people in all the houses. There was a deaf couple that was out there, if you don't mind standing up again. And the dispatch center would call my house, and then what happened to the notification system is it automatically activates and starts speaking when someone picks up the phone. So in this case here, the interpreter is picking up the phone, but it hadn't yet connected to me. We have a pickle here. So what happened is, while the guy running the machine jamming on all the details about the evacuation details and stuff like that, she's still waiting to connect to me on the video phone. And by the time, if I do pick up the phone, by the time I pick up the phone and get connected with the dispatch thing's already hung up. She's not a robot, can't memorize everything inside her head. Just like if you shoot data in Star Trek, she might memorize everything and record it exactly the same tone and stuff like that. So that was a problem. Thank you. And what happened was, some Alex down the road, the sheriff department came up to a couple of towns. What are you doing here? The couple were oblivious to what was happening. So that kind of a problem with it when you reverse notification out there to some of the folks who have used a video radar call or even a Captel type device down there. That's why I wanted to share with you today. Unfortunately, I couldn't get out there to give you a quick demonstration. I also have an answering machine on there. And the answering machine will tell me what's going on. And I can use it on my smartphone, my tablet, or any computerized device on there. So that's a cool thing. How's that make sense to you guys? How many of you guys have heard this before? 1, 2. A dozen people heard this before, and the rest of you have not heard it before. What do you think of it? Someone who had not heard it before. Tell me something what your thoughts are of it so far. I think the crowd's hungry, they're quiet.
Could be.
Okay. It is a little weird. Yes.
So, Billy, can you talk a little bit about, I know you talked about one of the difficulties with emergency notification systems and that it connects to your interpreter and is automatically talking before she's able to connect to you. What do you see as one of the ways to solve that problem for the deaf and hard of hearing community?
Can you reiterate that question one more time to make sure I got it makes sense?
Sure. You talked about the problem where an emergency notification system calls you to deliver a message, but it connects to your interpreter first before it's connected to you. Can you think of a way that we might be able to solve that problem for the deaf and hard of hearing community?
About 4 years ago, we brought this up to the national. Let me back it up a little bit more too. These people get their money from the FCC. The FCC sets up some rulings and their statutes and say they have to go through these rulings. And they also went into the question of who was the one in charge of 911. Nobody wanted to finger they were. We don't know who the person oversees it, but the FCC issued a mandate to all the video relay service providers, and they said, look, take note down. If you do hear this out, try the best you can. And so by the time the party on the other end picks up the phone, go ahead and relay what you do know. But the interesting thing about it is there's no reliability on it. And in fact, if you look at the website, there are a lot of video relay service providers. We have about 7 in the United States of major relay services, 7 of them. And they all have disclaimers on the bottom of the screen. Hey, if you guys got a 911 call, don't blame it on us. We'll absorb all this stuff. That's what they're saying. It's a disclaimer, it's a waiver, because they don't want to take up any responsibility. So it's not currently saying we will take the accountability or anything like that. Yes.
I just want to piggyback on that. Why not put the burden on the providers, the emergency notification providers, to flag your phone numbers in their system and create some sort of delay in their notification to ensure that you all get communicated with the same as the rest of the public? Is that going on?
Oh, thank you. Love you. Yes, I agree with you. And I want to see that happen. Unfortunately, it's not happening right now. And it's an issue that we're trying to do on a national level. And it's a very good thing. In fact, on some of the local level, I can set up a bolo in my El Paso County 911 center, and I volunteer myself, and I just say, hey, this is my information. I have 2 kids in here, both mommies and daddies are deaf, but the kids are hearing. And so whenever you guys come over to us, we're going to be deaf and up, and I can understand you, so please bring an interpreter. And that bolo worked. It in fact works because they had a domestic violence call across the street from my house some time ago, and they were questioning all the people in the neighborhood. The officer brought an interpreter with them. First time at the house. So yes, the bolo is in there, and it's flagged on the El Paso County on local level, but I have to voluntarily do that myself. And a lot of people won't know to do that themselves. And that's a huge problem because a lot of people are not connected with that. And I do agree with you. I don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years on that national level. We're working it out, and I could use your eyes and ears. So if you guys hear more of that, please spread the gospel. If you have some ideas, let me know. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You want me to read it out to you?
Cheryl was asking, we did a test call using a video phone. What came up was the person's home address when he was actually in the comm center. So, we'll see that as your question.
Correct.
Or just a comment. So what we need to do is educate the community to sign up for I didn't get that last word, for alerts.
Correct.
It will help you. So she's saying, I get text alerts on my phone.